Hello Year 12s and welcome to this video, which is the second and last of our videos in the series on Porter's generic strategies approach. In this video we look in detail at two of Porter's generic strategies, that is, the lower cost strategy and the differentiation strategy. As you watch this video, there are four things that you need to do. First, take the very best Cornell notes that you can. Second, use the pause and rewind functions. Use the pause function if you need to stop this video to take notes. Use the rewind function if you need to go over any information contained in this video. The third thing that you need to do is have your summary books open in front of you. During this video, I will give you some guidance as to the information that you should include in your summary books. And the fourth thing that you need to do is have your vocabulary sheets open in front of you so that you can write into your vocabulary sheets the definitions of important terms or of any other words that you may be unfamiliar with. Once you've finished watching this video, please read the pages from the textbook referred to on this slide. And if you find any additional information from that reading that you think is useful, then supplement your Cornell notes with that additional information. Here is the learning intention for the two videos. This is that you should be able to describe two of Porter's generic strategies for strategic management. And the two strategies that we're looking at are the lower cost strategy and the differentiation strategy. Please make sure that you have this learning intention in your Cornell notes. Now, Porter's strategies are referred to as generic strategies. Generic means applicable to all businesses. So these strategies that we're going to discuss can be used for businesses of all sizes, large, medium and small, in all different kinds of industries. That's why we refer to these strategies as Porter's generic strategies. Keep an eye open for the definitions of the terms that are set out on this slide. These are the definitions that you'll need to include in your vocabulary sheets. The focus of Porter's generic strategies is on how a business can gain a competitive advantage over other businesses in the same industry. So this is a very important concept to understand. We're looking here at strategies that give businesses a competitive advantage over their competitors. Now, according to Porter, there are two strategies that a business can adopt to gain a competitive advantage over its competitors. The first is the lower cost strategy. That means that the business has to be able to operate at a lower cost than any competitors. I want to emphasize here the word any. Under this strategy, it's important that the business is the lowest cost operator, not just a low cost operator. And that's because if it's only one of several low cost operators, then there is a risk that there'll be another business, another competitor, that is able to operate at a lower cost and therefore attract away the business's customers. So under this strategy, the focus is on the business becoming the lowest cost operator in the relevant market. The second strategy that a business can adopt is the differentiation strategy. Differentiation means selling a product, that is a good or a service, that is different from the product sold by any competitors. Again, I want to emphasize the word any. Under this strategy, for a business to gain a competitive advantage over its competitors, it must be selling a product that is different from the product that any of its competitors are selling. Put another way, that product must be unique, so that the only source of supply of that product is the business. Customers can't go anywhere else to get that product. In a moment, we're going to look at Porter's two generic strategies, that is, the strategies of lower cost and differentiation in more detail. But again, I want to emphasize that the focus of each of these strategies is on obtaining a competitive advantage for the business. This is very important. The competitive advantage is the point of difference that a business has over its competitors, and its competitive advantage, which is the focus of Porter's generic strategies. Let's now turn to the first of Porter's generic strategies, which is the cost leadership strategy. A cost leadership strategy is a strategy that allows a business to gain a competitive advantage. These are very important words because remember, the focus of Porter's generic strategies is on a business acquiring a competitive advantage. So a cost leadership strategy is a strategy that allows a business to gain a competitive advantage by reducing its production or delivery costs and becoming the low-cost producer. Again, I emphasize the word the. It's important that the business is the low-cost producer in the market. That is, the lowest cost producer. If it is not, but it's simply one of a number of low-cost producers, then it will not gain a sustainable competitive advantage, because all it takes is for one of its competitors to reduce its costs below the business's costs, and that competitor will be able to attract away the business's customers. Now, you'll recall that the cost leadership strategy is the name given to a lower cost strategy which is used in the context of a wide market. If we were talking about a narrow market, this would be referred to as a cost-focused strategy. In any event, for both kinds of lower cost strategies, they both have an internal focus. That is, they look inwards on what the business can do by reducing its own costs. There are two ways in which such a strategy can gain a competitive advantage for a business. The first way is that a business can reduce its costs but still charge similar prices to its competitors. If a business adopts this strategy, then what it will be doing is increasing its profits, but its market share will remain unchanged. It's not going to be attracting away customers from its competitors, and it's not going to be losing customers to its competitors because its prices remain similar to its competitors. However, because its costs are lower, it will be making increased profits, and we know that profit maximization is a very important business objective. The second way in which a lower cost strategy can gain a competitive advantage for a business is that the business can reduce its costs and charge lower prices than its competitors charge. Now, in such a case, this strategy will increase the business's market share because the business will attract away customers from its competitors as it's offering lower prices than its competitors. However, the profits of the business will then remain unchanged because we're reducing our costs but also reducing our revenue through lower prices. The key to a lower cost strategy, whether that be cost leadership or cost focus, is on the business being able to reduce its costs. There are three ways in which a business can reduce its costs. Firstly, the business could increase its asset utilization. That means that the business could use its existing resources more efficiently. For example, if the business uses a machine to produce its products, it could increase the operating hours for that machine. By making the machine operate longer hours, a greater quantity of products can be produced. So we're increasing the use or utilization of that piece of machinery. Alternatively, the business could decide to replace some of its workforce, some of its employees, with new technology. We know that new technology can be efficient because it doesn't make the same mistakes that employees make, and because technology can be operated for a much longer number of hours than employees can work. Technology doesn't take meal breaks. It's not away sick on any particular days. The second way in which a business can reduce its costs is to reduce its direct and indirect operating costs. And a business can do that by mass producing standardized products. It is much cheaper to produce products that are all produced in the same form rather than being customized to a particular customer. That's because you can typically produce these kinds of products with technology. So, for example, if you think about the car industry, through the use of assembly line manufacture and robotics, it's possible to produce hundreds and hundreds of cars per day. And this is made possible to do it at a cheaper cost because all of those cars are the same. You're not wasting time and increasing cost by changing the design of each car to suit each customer. Alternatively, another way of reducing your operating costs is to operate out of low rent premises. You might choose to rent premises rather than to buy premises. And when you're choosing to rent premises, you might choose to rent in a low rent area. This is particularly possible if customers aren't going to be fussed about the surroundings that they're shopping in. So they don't mind coming to a warehouse as opposed to, for example, a boutique to buy their clothes. Another way of reducing your operating costs is to manufacture your products in a cheaper offshore location. You'll recall that in the last outcome we looked at outsourcing manufacturing. That is where an Australian business has its product manufactured perhaps in Asia where labour rates are cheaper. Well, that's a good way of reducing operating costs. The third way in which a business can reduce its costs is by controlling its costs. That's called cost control. So, for example, a business might enter into a long-term contract with one supplier of inputs called a preferred supplier, and in exchange for giving that supplier a long-term contract to supply inputs to the business can demand that the supplier charges it lower prices. The supplier gets security of supply, and the business gets an assurance that it will be being provided with inputs at a lower cost. Another way of cost control is by buying in bulk. Often, if you buy a high volume of inputs, for example, a supplier will be willing to give you a discount simply because you've bought a very large quantity of inputs. Another means that can be used to control costs is just in time. Just in time means that you purchase inputs just as you require them, so you probably won't get a bulk supply discount. However, the benefit of just in time is that it minimises inventory holding costs. You don't have large amounts of inputs or work in progress or finished products that you are holding. And that means that you are reducing your storage costs. You don't have to have big warehouses. You don't have to employ a lot of employees at the warehouses. It means you don't have lots of capital tied up in inputs that you don't need to use yet for a couple of months. And the final way in which businesses can control their costs is through employing lean management strategies to reduce waste. This slide summarises 4 features of lower cost strategies, whether that be cost leadership or cost focus. The first feature is that the focus of these strategies is on low prices and no frills. This strategy is targeted at attracting customers who are price conscious to buy their products from the business. So what is driving these customers is the desire to obtain their products at the lowest possible price. They're not motivated by the surroundings in which they shop or the amount of attention that's given to them by sales staff. So in other words, they don't care about frills. They're in for a no-frill experience, and the motivating factor for them is low prices. The second feature of lower cost strategies is that these strategies are generally only available to large businesses. And that's because it's large businesses that sell large quantities of mass-produced products. As you may recall from the previous slide, one of the keys to reducing cost is the ability to produce a large quantity of standardized products rather than products that are customized to individual customers. The third feature of lower cost strategies is that customers have low loyalty to the business. And that's because customers are searching for the cheapest prices. They don't care who they buy it from, they just want their products at the lowest possible prices. Now this leads to the fourth feature, which is a risk, which is that customers may come to associate low prices with low quality, so that a business that engages in lower cost strategies may find that it also gets a reputation for low quality products. Not necessarily because it sells low quality products, but simply because customers suspect that where a business is charging low prices, then the products that it sells are also likely to be low quality. Now we come to the second of Porter's generic strategies, which is differentiation strategies. A differentiation strategy is a strategy that allows a business to gain a competitive advantage. And again, these are very important words, because remember that the focus of Porter's generic strategies is on strategies that enable a business to gain a competitive advantage over their competitors. So a differentiation strategy is a strategy that allows a business to gain a competitive advantage by emphasizing the differences between its product and the products of competing businesses, where the differences are attributes that customers value. An attribute is simply a characteristic. So an attribute of a product is a characteristic of a product. It might, for example, refer to the durability or strength of the product. It might refer to the fact that the product comes with after-sales service, such as when you buy a car, you're often given a year's free servicing. It might refer to the brand image that the product has. So Nike, for example, has a particular brand image that will appeal to some people who buy sports shoes, those people who consider themselves to be particularly athletic. Now, differentiation strategy is the name that is given to the differentiation strategy that's used in a wide market context. If we take a narrow market context, then we would refer to this as a differentiation focus strategy. Again, the difference in terminology is not very important. The fact is that they are very similar strategies. It's just that the competitive focus is a little bit different. Whereas our lower cost strategies had an internal focus, our differentiation strategies have an external focus. That is, they're not so much focused internally on the business, but they're focused externally on capturing a segment of the market by presenting a product to the market, that is externally, which is unique, which is different from the product provided by competing businesses. There are two ways in which a differentiation strategy can result in a business gaining a competitive advantage. The first way is that customers may be prepared to pay a premium price for the product. That is, they are prepared to pay a higher price for that product than for a similar product produced by a competitor. Again, taking the example of Nike shoes, there are a number of sporting shoe manufacturers. So, for example, you have ASICS. But it may well be that because of the advertising that Nike's done, people prefer to buy Nike shoes because they come with a certain image. So even though Nike shoes and ASICS shoes perform the same function, they're sporting shoes that enable people to run, customers are nonetheless prepared to pay more for Nike shoes just because they come with a Nike brand attached. Now, where customers are prepared to pay a higher price for a product, then of course that will increase the profits of the business. The second way in which a differentiation strategy can create a competitive advantage for the business is that customers tend to be loyal purchasers of the product. That is, they value an attribute of the product. They don't feel that that same attribute is provided by the products produced by competitors, and as a result they will keep on coming back to the business that provides that product to buy that product. And this is a way of increasing market share, because if, as in the case of Nike, you have a very recognizable brand, then that is a way of attracting customers away from your competitors to your own product. There are a number of ways in which a business can differentiate its product and so employ a differentiation strategy. One way is the business could use high quality inputs or materials. For example, if you own a pizza shop, you might seek to differentiate your pizzas from other pizzas by using fresh toppings rather than canned toppings. In that way, you are using high quality materials to make your product unique, to make it different from those of your competing pizza manufacturers. A second way in which a business can differentiate its product from the product of its competitors is through innovative product design. So, for example, there are now on the market cars with automated parking. That is, the driver just has to press a button when they're near a car park, and the automated steering and guiding systems of the car take over, and without the driver doing anything, the steering wheel is turned and the car is parked. Another way a business can differentiate its product is through distributing its product through selected channels. So, for example, if you specialize in manufacturing fashion clothes, then you're going to want those clothes to be sold at boutiques, at upmarket shops, rather than at discount shops. And that's again a way of differentiating your product from mass-produced clothes. Going to a boutique has a certain cachet compared to shopping at Kmart. And a final way in which a business can differentiate its product from its competitors' products is through providing quality services. That could be quality sales services, so that when you go into a shop to buy your product, there are attentive sales staff who look after you, or it could be through quality after-sales services. So you've bought your product, maybe a car, and then in the next couple of months you need the car serviced, and that service is provided to you. You drive your car into the service centre, you're given a cup of coffee, you're made comfortable, perhaps you're given a taxi voucher to go into work, and then a taxi voucher to come back out to pick up your car. That's quality after-sales service. This slide sets out the features of differentiation strategies. As we work through these features, I want you to think back to the features of lower cost strategies. Would be a good question to have on a sack, wouldn't it? Requiring you to compare the features of a lower cost and differentiation strategies. The first feature of a differentiation strategy is that its focus is on the uniqueness of the product. That is, the focus of the strategy is on developing a product that has a particular attribute that is valued by customers and which they can't obtain from one of your competitors. In contrast, the focus of lower cost strategies is on producing products that can be sold at the lowest possible price. Now, if you're trying to produce products that can be sold at the lowest possible price, that means that you need to be producing your products at the lowest possible cost. That in turn means that you're probably going to be mass producing standardized products, because if you try to tailor your products to particular customer wants or requirements, then that will increase the cost and therefore the price of that product. The second feature of differentiation strategies is that branding is important. And the way that businesses create the perception that their product is unique is through marketing and advertising. Think of Nike. If you removed the Nike logo from a Nike shoe, it suddenly looks like any other shoe. Just like any other sports shoe, you can use it for running, for athletics, for basketball, for exercising. But it's through Nike's very clever marketing and advertising campaign that they have created the perception that people who wear Nike shoes are very good athletes. So they have used marketing and advertising to create a certain brand image, and people are prepared to pay a premium price for that brand image. The third feature of differentiation strategies is that they are focused on generating high customer loyalty. This is because customers are in search of quality, and once they find a product that has an attribute that they value, and they can't get that product from any other business, then they will become loyal to your business. That is, they'll keep on coming back to your business to buy that product. In contrast, under the lower cost strategies, you have low customer loyalty, because the focus there is on attracting price-conscious customers by providing or selling a product at the cheapest possible price. What that means is that these customers are after their product at the cheapest possible price. They don't care who they buy it from, as long as they get it at the lowest price. The fourth feature of differentiation strategies is that they are easier to implement where the product cannot be copied. As I've explained, if a business comes up with a unique product and that product appeals to customers, then your competitors are going to start trying to find ways to imitate that product. So therefore, it's easier to implement a differentiation strategy if you've got a product that can't be copied. It may well be, for example, that your competitors are prohibited by law from copying your product because you've taken out a patent, a copyright, or some other form of intellectual property protection. It may be that your product can't be copied because you have the unique technical expertise that's required to produce that product. Think of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Kentucky Fried Chicken is cooked according to a very special and secret recipe that combines a number of different herbs and spices. So the reason that competitors can't copy that product is that they don't have the technical expertise. They don't know what the recipe is. It could be that your product can't be copied because it is produced by talented employees. If we think about businesses that develop video games, some video games are more successful than others because they have talented employees producing them who can produce video games with higher levels of excitement, higher levels of challenge. And the reason those products can't be copied is because the business that produces those video games has talented employees, which are employees of their business, not employees of another business. The fifth feature of differentiation strategies is that they require ongoing research, development, and innovation. And this is critical to ensure that the business continues to produce products that are unique and high quality. Again, the reason for this is that you will always face competition, and if you are not researching, developing, and innovating, continually improving the uniqueness and quality of your products, then your competitors are going to catch up, and pretty soon you will lose the advantage of differentiation. The sixth point to note is that the differentiation strategies come with a risk, and that risk is that the costs of producing a unique product are very high because the focus is on producing a premium product, one which can command higher prices from customers, one which involves a lot of research, development, and innovation, which cost money. So if you are implementing a differentiation strategy, you've also got to keep an eye on your costs. And that's because if your costs increase considerably, then you can adversely affect your profitability. In contrast, the risk in adopting a lower cost strategy is that your products are associated with low quality. As I've said before, they may not be low quality, but there may be a perception amongst customers that if you're selling a product at a low price, then it must be a lower quality product. Here are some examples of businesses that have been very successful with their differentiation strategies. Apple. They are known for software, for simple product design, and for their innovative products. We've already talked about Nike, which is known for its high-value range of sports gear. Qantas, which is known for its safety record and its reliability. BMW, which is known for producing quality motor vehicles. Singapore Airline, which is known for providing premium services such as hot meals and scented towels, but at competitive prices. This is a slide that you've seen before. In this slide, I have set out the 4 possible generic approaches or strategies for a business. These strategies are determined by looking at what is the actual competitive advantage that is being sought. Is it being sought through lower cost or differentiation? And what is the competitive scope? That is, who does the business see its competitors as being? Is it a wide market, referred to here as a broad target, or is it a narrow market, referred to here as a narrow target? When you take each of these possible combinations, you get 4 possible approaches. That is, you can be the lowest cost producer in a wide market, the lowest cost producer in a narrow market, you can differentiate in a wide market, or you can differentiate in a narrow market. Now, I've been over all of that before, so I'm not going to repeat it again. But the key point that I want to make in relation to this slide is that Porter says that a business should only use one approach, that is, one of these 4 possible generic strategies. And the reason Porter says that is that he worries that otherwise a business will lose focus. For our purposes, the key point that I want to make is that there is a clear tension between adopting a lower cost strategy and a differentiation strategy. In the case of a lower cost strategy, you are seeking to appeal to price-conscious customers. So your focus will be on producing mass-produced, standardized products because they are cheaper to produce. On the other hand, if you are adopting a differentiation strategy, then what you're trying to do is to make a product that is unique, that has an attribute that has particular value for customers. In that case, you're not so much focused on cost as on focused on the uniqueness of your product. And that will mean that you often have a higher cost in producing that product because you are trying to produce a premium product. For example, a product that is made from high quality materials or a product that is accompanied by high quality service. So for the purposes of this slide, the point I want you to take away is that it is inconsistent for a business to try to adopt both a lower cost strategy and a differentiation strategy. Instead, the business has to choose which one of those strategies that it's going to adopt. Now we come to your summary books. To help you to understand and remember the information that we've covered in these 2 videos on Porter's generic strategies approach, I suggest that you include a diagram like this in your summary books. This diagram summarizes the information contained in this video on the top half and the information contained in the first video on the bottom half. However, this is only a skeleton diagram, and you should think about how you can add more detail to this diagram if that would be useful to you. For instance, you might wish to include examples about how the lower cost and differentiation strategies are implemented on the right-hand side of this diagram. Or you might wish to include definitions or examples of the 5 forces or powers that are relevant to the 5-force analysis, which is referred to on the bottom of this diagram. And here's a useful table that you could include in your summary books. This is a table that you can complete to summarize the differences between the lower cost strategy and the differentiation strategy. The information that you can use to complete this table comes from slides 9 and 13 of this video. As I've said, a very interesting SAC or exam question might be one that requires you to compare the lower cost strategy and the differentiation strategy. You could use the information that you include in this table to assist you to answer such a question. Well, that now brings us to the end of the video. As a result of listening to this video and the previous work that you've done, you should now be able to describe 2 of Porter's generic strategies for strategic management. That is, the lower cost strategy and the differentiation strategy. Please remember that you need to read Chapter 12 of the textbook And if you find any information in that chapter that you think is particularly useful, go back and supplement your Cornell notes with it. Thank you for your attention.